Welcome back to Able Heads. My name is Anika and I'm your host, and this is the podcast where we talk to creatives to learn how they build with intention, create boldly, and navigate their own way through work and through life. Today, I'm joined by someone I've admired for a while, Nick Longo. Nick is a powerhouse in the design world. He runs Longo Designs, where he's led incredible packaging and branding work to everything from small startups and big brands. But what makes Nick's story and perspective more interesting is the way he wears multiple hats. He's also a passionate design educator, a podcast host, and a mentor to thousands of creatives navigating this ever changing industry. In this episode, we talk about what it takes to run a creative business, how to teach design in a time where AI is shaking everything up, and why staying curious might be your most important skill. Let's get into it. Co-host of the deeply graphic design cast and design professor at California State University. Nick,
Sounds so
how are you?
official. I'm good. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. We met briefly. I don't think we got enough time, so I'm excited to dive deep and learn more and
Good.
talk all things business, mentorship, and I think I want to touch a little bit on AI as well.
Love it. Oh, please,
Yeah.
let's get into all of it.
Yeah. First things first, how did you get into design education?
I went back to my college
Mm-hmm.
and did a talk. We they always were bringing back alumni to talk a little bit about like what life has been like since graduating, and my timing was just perfect. They had a emergency situation like the next week where a teacher could not commit to the schedule of the upcoming semester, and we were just talking about possibly applying to teach because I had such a great time coming in and talking with the students. And
Yeah.
I did like my whole presentation on where I was at the time. I was working in the toy industry and I was showing them all the stuff we worked on and everything. And lo and behold, like 2 weeks later, I got hired. And 3 weeks later, I was starting a class.
Wow.
And that was 11 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, congratulations. That sounds awesome. I did not know you were in the toy industry before food and beverage. That's
Yeah,
that's interesting.
it kind of goes hand in hand because we made toys for fast food kids meal toys. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what we primarily made. So now I get to kind of make up for all those years of like working for terrible food. And now I work with more healthy and more wellness kind of products. So it's
Yeah.
kind of nice to kind of make up for all that time trying to
Yeah.
promote terrible food to kids. So I'm trying to recover.
Yeah, the chop it up. I really like the branding for
Oh,
chop it
thank you.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I am excited about getting into this conversation too, just because I always thought you were in food and beverage, but this is a curveball.
Yeah.
So
Good.
from McDonald's toy kits, which obviously we don't know if it's McDonald's, you're not gonna share.
Yeah, I
But
don't want to say who.
yeah.
not
To
not hot dog queen, but yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no spoilers.
Mm.
Okay, cool. So what I think the first thing that I guess the second thing here that I want to learn more is how do you define success?
Wow. I think it first comes with your happiness and your, you know, are you passionate in your job? Are you loving what you do? Do you live and breathe it? Then success kind of follows, right?
Hmm.
If you're doing something you don't like to do, or you feel stuck in a certain place, whatever, I think you make those moves because success is like the ultimate like goal, the ultimate feeling. But I don't define it. I learned the hard way with a few first jobs that I had that maybe were the salary and everything felt great and that defined success to me. But what I realized was it wasn't a job I was learning success in. It wasn't a good, let's call it a good culture, or I didn't have someone I was learning from. So again, like I was just telling a student of mine the other day who's looking at a job offer, and I was trying to tell him success, future, all that stuff, the learning, don't just think of a dollar sign behind it. It's obviously about what are you learning? What are you gaining? How are you getting better? Are you expanding your network? Are you meeting great people? All those things factor into, I think, success in some cases more than the dollar figure or
Yeah.
that obviously you want to continue to do good and make a living, and it's getting harder and harder, it seems like, in this creative industry to get there. So I always try to say, like, try to keep a balance between what success means to you, and
Yeah.
don't go off of social media currency, don't go off of that kind of stuff. I think it's about, are you truly doing what you love to do and you can't wait to do it the next day or after that weekend, whatever it might be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very well said. I think it's finding the purpose and if you're happy in that purpose.
Totally.
Um, and speaking of purpose, how has your purpose in design education evolved over the past 10 years or so?
Oh gosh, it's made a huge impact. I never knew this would be something I'd be doing.
Yeah.
And school led into the podcast, led into working with Adobe, working in with, and then I just realized a lot of my reach was in this world of helping kind of the next person in line who needs it, who's right behind me and needs a little encouragement or needs some advice or needs to, connect with someone that could truly give them some kind of propel to the next level or the next area of their career. And I just realized that being so in our community and knowing so many people, particularly through the podcast and now through the Adobe network, I can find those people that maybe if I can't answer the question or if I'm not the right person to give that advice, I can find someone and link them up with that, and vice versa. I have so many people will reach out and be like, I know this young designer who is looking for career advice or whatever. Would you be available? That idea
Yeah.
of how we share amongst our community and everything right now is so wonderful. And I'm just so happy to be like a part of that. I think there's a you can probably see it too. I see a lot of folks that are just getting their grounding into the industry, and the first thing they start thinking about is, how can I start giving back? What can I do to mentor or help someone? Because someone really made a difference in their life. I think, a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So many designers feel like alone or like unheard or whatever it might be, or undiscovered in a lot of ways. And if someone can take that chance with them and give them that opportunity, that's where everyone shines. So why wouldn't you want to be a part of that kind of not only situation but industry? I think that's the one thing we're doing better than anything else I can see out there.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think the transparency and the authenticity in relationships too is something that is really inspiring.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a bad blood person thing everywhere,
Hmm.
and that's in every industry. You can't do anything about it. But I think the fact that everyone's so transparent with pricing, with how you approach clients, with the difficult questions that no one seemed to talk about 20 years ago, and now people are open and honest about it, even at a very small scale, I think
Yeah.
it's admirable. Yeah,
Everyone's sharing their pitch decks or their contract or whatever it might be, or negotiating a salary, whatever, all these topics that were so taboo, like no one was talking about it
yeah,
in the industry. And now it's almost like there's no threat in sharing it, because I kind of feel, one, we talk on a global scale now thanks to technology and everything.
yeah,
So you're really not like, I think the people would gatekeep that stuff because they were afraid if they shared some of their intellectual property, their ideas or their insights. They're like, I need jobs. I need, I need to work. And
yeah.
now it's like, nah, we're talking globally. So it's really cool.
Yeah, and I think with AI too, it's no more about the trade secrets, as people say. It's more about what you bring to the table, what's your
Hmm.
perspective, what's your thought process, and how you can maybe even prompt AI to generate the things that the client wants.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
changing times with that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about how your purpose has evolved over the past few years. But is there something that you think design schools should stop doing immediately in terms of curriculum or like anything
How
that
much
comes to
time do
mind?
you have?
Um,
I'm just kidding. Um, it's changing so fast. And I'd say what they should stop doing. Hmm. I think if you could change the whole environment, culture, trajectory of school to almost feel like their first job, turn it more into that style where I think if it's less of grading and less of kind of lecture and everything, it's got to be a little more interactive and it's got to
Mm.
be a lot more real world inspired. I was guilty of this just a few years ago, kind of falling into the trap of building projects for students that I thought were worthy of their portfolios going out into the real world. And then last year, getting to go to about 12 different cities with Adobe and seeing all these different portfolio reviews from students all over the country, I was like, we are all doing the exact same thing. There wasn't enough variety, all that stuff. So like this year, what I tried to do was threw a spin on most of the projects and got them, the students themselves, to really art direct. And I would give them a prompt rather than an objective or a syllabus for a project. So it's really allowing them to put their own thought, ideas, messages, you name it. If they want to get into entertainment, they can spin it entertainment. If they want to get into branding, they can spin it branding, right? It's pretty open.
Yeah.
And I think the results have been really good. Seeing what they're doing now kind of breaks the mold, and it's a little bit different from that same old thing. My main thing is to make a kid, when they leave, I want their portfolio to not look like a student portfolio,
Yeah.
because the reality of it is they're going to be up against jobs with people that are maybe 2 to 3 years ahead of them that, unfortunately got laid off or something and now are looking at jobs and maybe taking a bit of a pay cut. So they're going to be competing against young talent right out of school. So I want to make sure they're 2 to 3 years ahead of schedule with all of their stuff. So case studies, really rich content. All the principles have to be there, but these projects have to leave a mark. If you give them work that's just forgettable, you're going to be forgettable. And you might have the brightest and most charming personality, but if the work isn't there, they got to go hand in hand now, and there's no way around it.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually agree with that. I did some portfolio reviews, I think, early this year and last year as well.
Mhm.
Um, Everyone seemed to have the same project. And I think that was interesting because I was like, oh, I see that you were trying to do something different with this, but you probably are stuck inside a box and trying to do the same thing. So, yeah, it's admirable that you're trying to advocate for their growth and trying to create an experience where you're almost working with the client,
Yeah,
and giving them that experience firsthand where you are direct, this is the brief, go run with it.
yeah. And you got to
Yeah.
be careful too, because they're not going to be art directors immediately. They're going to go through their first few years. And so then it's like also giving them projects that they're technically going to hate. Like you've got to throw one or two of those in there, because the real world is not going to say like, oh, you love working with pets, I'm going to give you a pet project to work on. It doesn't work that way. You might be working on something that is just completely 180 to your world.
Yeah.
And I always remind them, you're commercial artist first. You're not fine artist. And you're doing this for commerce. You're doing this for sales. You're doing this for persuasion. You're doing this for activism, whatever it might be. And so keep that in mind, because it's not about pretty pictures. It's about strategy. It's about moving the needle and doing all those things.
Yeah. Yeah. So is there like a common misconception that students typically have about creative careers?
Yeah. First one is they obviously think they have to have it all figured out right now. I don't
Mm.
know where that came from. Like even asking a high school student to be like, pick your industry, and
Yeah.
before you even apply to a college, how backwards is that? Like that alone, like the whole idea was you're supposed to enjoy those first 2 years and figure out, experiment, learn, get exposure to all these different things. Yeah,
Yeah.
certain people know exactly what they want younger, but most don't. So that's one area. Then consider you've already decided to get into communication design or graphic design, creative, and now they want you to pick your industry. automatically, like pick your focus. And
Mhm.
that's there's two problems with that. One, they have no idea what they want because they've never worked in the real world.
Yeah.
And two, there's this push to be more of the generalist now rather than the specialist. So I always tell my students, like, my story that, like, did I ever think packaging would be in my future and be the thing that I really, really love? No. Came through my second job. And then two, did I ever think food, beverage, restaurant would be my thing? No. Like, so like if I gave it my all when I was in college to be in that thing, I probably would have missed some wild opportunities because I was so tunnel vision on like one particular area. So I think that's the worst thing we could tell them to do, unless, because there's exceptions, you are a stellar, like let's say you're an incredible hand letterist and your
Mhm.
talent is wildly good and you're leaps and bounds above everybody else in your school and people are lining up to, you know, work with you. Great. There's your specialty. You're good to go. But that's very rare.
Yeah. 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 Niching down and being a generalist is always a conversation. And also one of the very frequently asked questions I get
Mhm.
during reviews as well. Like, should I niche down? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you should honestly know everything.
Yeah. And everything that define everything because everything
Yeah.
is changing so fast. And I can't even keep up with the technology and everything else. So, you know, again, pushing a narrative of you got to do this
Yeah.
and they're not going to be actually touching a real world environment for 2 to 3 years, you could be misleading someone into something that doesn't even exist in two to
Yeah.
three years or a specialty or something because of how fast our industry is changing now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even with AI, and speaking of that, does that play any role in the curriculum at all?
Yes, and we just it's funny because we just had a conversation this morning. We were reflecting on this past semester, and we
Yeah.
really, really need to put together some kind of a AI guidelines because you can't ignore it as an educator. It has to, be in there somewhere. But at what degree do we want to say maybe here's where your AI assistant stops, right? You can use it in brainstorming, you can use it in mood boards, you can use it in concept development, you can use it in even on the just the not even the generative art side of it, but the kind of chat GPT stuff. There's beautiful, beautiful like reasons to be using it, and it can enrich your concepts and everything else. You can upload your work and say, "Is this good enough? Is this good hierarchy? Is this good color theory? Whatever it is." And I think that's where it's almost like a teacher's assistant. So if I was laughing, I was talking to some people yesterday and last week in Austin, and I saw some incredible student work and I said, "How on earth are you getting this kind of work out of students?" And they said there's a maximum of 12 students per class, right? Mine, I'm at 28 in some of my classes. How do you have the one-on-one time as a teacher and a student to really refine their work? So part of me was saying, if AI could do that, what if I take my lecture notes and my video tutorials and everything that I prep for a semester and put it in a GPT and build a GPT as a class assistant that my students can use like over the weekend, late at night, or whatever it might be. And it's like getting an answer from me without me there. And we're going to test that out next semester. I don't know if that's good or bad. We'll see. But I would love that. Wouldn't that be an incredible like little like sidekick to have for all these students to use at their disposal and see if it works?
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, that's great. I actually use ChatGPT in a similar way where I'm trying to teach it my brand and my tone of voice and then create a GPT out of it, like a custom one. So I can use it for every day, just for gathering my ideas and thoughts and what I think about a proposal or what I think about
Mhm.
a project and how my brain's working for it to learn from it. Which honestly, I feel at some level is kind of dangerous.
I know.
Seeing
Yeah.
the latest Black Mirror season, I don't know if you've seen it, but
No, but I know the fear in a lot of that is interesting. And my latest tip that I found was what I'm using now is I'll put out the overall objective of why what I'm going to ask. right? But then I say, here's what I need. Boom, 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 boom. My plan is to do this. I want it to be of this, whatever. I go, before we do anything, do you have questions for me? So it's more custom to what I need, what I want, and my own voice. If you try that, what it will do is almost interview you now before it gives you the answers. And I think that's a really interesting way to try it because now it's becoming truly the assistant to you rather than you being an assistant to it. I don't want to. I think we've all done it enough now to see if the lamer your prompt, the lamer your responsive, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're all trying to figure out these ways to be like, I still want it to help because it helps accelerate timelines. I'm more concise, whatever it might be. My writing feels and sounds a lot better because of it. But I want to make sure it's me and it's human then AI, not the other way around.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that. I was actually testing something out yesterday, and I selected deep research. And instead of me putting that as part of the prompt, it prompted me with five
Mm,
questions
yeah.
and asked me, "Can you answer these questions before I get started to curate the perfect response for you?" And I'm like, "Sure, yeah, here are the
Isn't that
answers."
great?
Yeah. I think that was made it more genuine and made
Mm,
it more personalized to what my ask was.
yeah,
And I think that made it's like building trust between two people working together. And if you're genuinely interested in asking
totally.
and answering questions about what I'm curious about, then I think you're actually taking time to do research and helping me as an assistant.
At first, it looks weird because you're like, "Wait a minute, I'm so used to getting a response in, like, 2 minutes." I was
Yeah.
like, "I gotta do extra work here now," and but it's so worth it. It's so
Yeah.
worth it. The results have been so much better since I've been trying to say, like, "Ask me the questions first before we do
Mhm.
anything."
Yeah. No, I really like the perspective that you're actually including AI in the curriculum or at least advocating for it for now. Do you think that new designers are finding it hard with AI in the picture to find a footing, or is it actually leveling the playing field?
Good question. I think it's confusing them first.
Hmm.
I know, many of them are apprehensive to use it. They feel like it is a cheat, you know? And to certain degrees it is. If you're just saying like, draw me a squirrel logo with an acorn, and then you're using it, that's I don't think any of us want that, you know? But if I'm trying to open their eyes to say like, but what if, you put in all that content of what this should be and you put in your sketch and say, analyze this for me. Is this right for the target market of 18 to 24? They have these hobbies and whatever. And then it says, actually, no, this is too juvenile. You should try something a little more sophisticated. There's where you're like, yes, that makes so much sense. I would use that all the time. So I think that's where their fear is. And then there's the unknown because job markets, um, unfortunate layoffs, whatever they're hearing about the people that are just right above them. I think it's all a matter of just being confused and like worried. And AI doesn't help in that mix. You know what I mean? Um, some students have really embraced it and are using it in ways that I feel are giving them an advantage. When our students go out there and apply for jobs, they're being asked what AI skills do you have? What could you bring to the table? A lot of these companies, here we are living in this world and we talk about it so much because it's part of our industry. But some of these smaller businesses that you're gonna eventually maybe work for or do whatever, they're all sitting here going like, what is going on? Like all I keep hearing about is AI and how it's gonna help. So wouldn't it make sense to be a bit of an expert in that thing to bring to them if it's really that bad and as far as everybody I talk to says it's so competitive, how do I stand out? You're going to have to kind of swallow a little of that pride with AI, I think, and learn it before you have a true opinion. And if you can see that it can help you in a lot of these ways, there's your competitive edge. I think it ain't going anywhere. Here's my thing that I think feels makes it feel a little bit more optimistic for the future. I remember like 2 or 3 years ago when you first started hearing about it, the predictions were, oh, there won't be a screenwriter in LA or in Hollywood. They're going to be taken over, whatever. And it's like, you know, no, we're not there yet. And they said it was going to happen so quickly. And yes, it's very fast paced and new features every week. But I really feel like the public who absorb and respond to all this stuff, be it a movie, a book, a packaging design, whatever we're going to do as creatives, they know the difference. And if it's crap, it ain't being bought. So here we are in this weird world of how does AI blend in and how do we stay relevant as the human side of this whole equation as the creative. And I think we're going to win with that. I really do. I just don't think it's going to get to that scary part that everyone talks about of it replacing everyone. Just can't see it happening. At least my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think as long as you're also implementing it in your workflow and being on top of things, which is the ever-changing technology, there's always something new every day. I was watching the Severance talk from Config, and they were talking about set design and a movie called Playtime that nobody watched apparently, and that was the inspiration for some of the sets for the MDR specific environment and scenes. And I was surprised and I did not even know that movie existed. So it's like, what is your inspiration? What's your thought process? What's the research? What's the story? And I think that's more important when it comes to the human side of things. So, you mentioned packaging, and then I'm curious, does AI, personally for you, does AI play any role in packaging design in your process at all?
It was the first area I really got into it
Yeah.
and tried using it. I I don't think for generative, like actually creating anything, it's been helpful in any way. Where it is helpful is analysis, concept, like uploads to say like, are we on track? If I'm building everything from my onboarding to the pitch deck to our creative brief, and I'm using ChatGPT for it, when we are at a point where concepts are being made, I can upload them all and say, what's the winner? What's the best one on there? Like that's where I'm using it. I did try using it to say like generate a pizza box that needs to be blank, 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 blank. And what I liked about it was nothing I would have ever created. Well, look, I don't, I'll be first to admit there's days where you're like, I don't have an idea in the world. Like I am so empty of creativity, but I have to be on today. I've got to deliver 4 concepts or whatever it might be. Right. It did give me a few things where I was like, oh, there's a neat little arrangement or hierarchy that was really cool. And I might have used it to say, here's where my placement of the product would be. Here's where my title would be. I love how it integrated the call outs. Great. I'll take it from there. So it was a neat little thing to add there. It's not much client facing stuff in my packaging world. You know what I mean? It's behind the scenes and it's there. Copy is obviously incredibly important. Just wrapping one this week with a new client, and I'm telling you, if it wasn't for the amount of data and research we did for the competitors and everything, and making sure every blurb we wrote on that packaging is refreshing, new, and doesn't sound like anything else on the marketplace, that's how we got there. Like, I can't go and look at every international food shop and find all these mom and pop kind of competitors and say, like, are we really, how many times do someone say, like, standing out on shelf, right? And doing all of that. How else can we do that? And to do it in just a matter of seconds, it's like, it's so compelling. It really is. So that's
Yeah.
where I'm using it primarily, I'd say, in packaging. I love it as that little marketing analysis intern. That just helps.
No, I absolutely. That actually sparked a thought in my brain where you mentioned that one day you're running out of creativity and you put in a prompt and maybe something sparks that
Mhm.
thought process.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we call like a happy accident. Maybe you're working in a program and you're not getting around what you want, and then you hit a random key on your keyboard and something happens. It's similar to that, except it's more controlled.
Yeah.
So you're giving it all the prompts, everything's intentional, and you just don't know what the outcome's going to be, but it's still kind of like a happy accident.
Yeah.
So, thinking about big picture, is there something that makes you that hesitate that gives the feeling of hesitation to you when it comes to AI?
Good one. Trying to think back to the one thing I feel like it's closest to was when everyone was pushing a lot of those instant logos and logo
Mm.
factories and 99 designs and all that stuff, there was this fear that, like, I remember a few times I would pitch a branding project to someone and they're like, I saw this other thing, it's $50, why are you charging me $4,500, or whatever it might have been. And I remember just having a such a negative reaction to that I said, go for it. Go over there. Go use it. Right. So I think
Yeah.
the same thing's gonna, and they came running back, right? Because they were like, all those people were doing was taking like clip art for a logo and 8,000 different fonts and just matching it up. And I saw one of my clients shared with me what they got from one of those $50 like logo things. It was so terrible. It got a little bit better and it was maybe getting a little bit scary at one point,
Yeah.
but that's the call for you to rise above it and say, you're not even my competition. Don't even think about it. There's so many more things you bring to the table as a one-on-one designer with the client. So my fear with AI or apprehension was the idea of like when a client started saying, like, as we're in the middle of a branding project with them, they got Midjourney or they got ChatGPT and they're like, hey, I tried a few versions to see what it would come up with. And I was like, I'm so glad you did that, because now I can, like, I won't even call it a comparison, but I will
Yeah.
shut it down so quickly. My fear is that if it gets better and better,
Mm.
where will I have an answer for it later down the road?
Yeah.
So that's
20 years later.
my fear. It is that it can get really good with brand
Mm.
and brand creation,
Mm.
but on the flip side, branding has become so comprehensive and so deep and so much. You look at some of these brand pitches for the biggest companies in the world and you look at their brand book and there's so much behind it,
Yeah.
and I feel like the human is still the only one that could say, like, Instagram, this is your logo and why, and selling it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if AI got it and it was successful, it would just be complete luck, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's also the communication and strategy aspect behind it.
Yes.
Even if you get your copy from AI or wherever, ChatGPT, XYZ brand, you still have to justify your decisions. And if you don't know how you got to point A, like got to point B from A, your client won't agree to it, and you won't be able to sell the best thing that's best for their brand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think that's where the humans come in and still will exist to, I guess, be part of the process.
Yeah. Or not, I think lead the process, like lead the process for people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So just going back to the design schools and design programs, do you think there's like a soft skill that's lacking or massively kind of undervalued in design programs?
Eye to eye contact in talking to you. I think
Nice.
we have COVID did a number for sure.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, People got so used to online hybrid working and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And so what we're seeing is a whole other generation that can't or doesn't have the confidence to break the ice with a new person,
Mm.
go up to someone that they're dying to talk to and just ask a few questions, all that kind of stuff, let alone pitch and sell yourself when the time comes. So, yeah, I think breaking free from that and learning that soft skill better than anything is going to be 50%, if not more, of the yes or no when it comes to a new job for you. You know,
Yeah.
um, Having that confidence, being able to kind of like express uh, your passion, your love for doing what you do. So many times with portfolio reviews, and when we just had one at our school 2 weeks ago, and when I asked we had 70 industry professionals come and meet with our kids, and they all had a consensus that, like, yeah, hey, some of you are killing it, you're doing great, love the work and everything, but like, tell me that you care. Tell me that you give a damn about this industry and show it. And then I want to know about you. What do you, I'm hiring you, not your book. So if you could break out of those things and practice with friends, practice with your family members, if you have a mentor or someone that you trust, ask them that. And if you got no one, pull out your phone and record yourself. Get comfortable in doing that. I have one student who has made like such a 180 in their incredible development of almost like afraid to talk, afraid to raise their hand. Now they are just killing it in standing up, asking questions, throwing in some humor, but most importantly, being memorable. And like you're like, I almost want to cry the other day. I was like so happy to see how well they are doing with stuff like that. So try your best with that, and you won't like regret it, because that's a life skill that you're gonna need so quickly, and you'll be authentic and you'll be real. You won't be salesy and like fake.
Yeah, yeah. The pulling up your camera and doing it is also a very good tip. I think even after doing so many, I don't know how many hours, I guess 250 plus hours of live streams I've done for Adobe Live and recorded so many podcast episodes now, I feel the first second of it is like, am I good enough to do this?
And that has to be there.
It's
You
because you
would
care. That's
fool
why you're
yourself if
nervous.
you didn't have that.
Yeah, yeah.
Isn't that the funnest line I've ever heard? Was like, if you don't feel the least bit nervous in pressing push, record,
Hmm.
post, whatever, share, then you're doing it wrong, because you should have that feeling. You should
Yeah,
feel like, oh, like, is this the right thing? Like, okay, and like you do that like send or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
If you weren't feeling that, I don't know, man. Like that's part of the highs too,
yeah,
taking
yeah.
a little risk on something, and then if even if it bombs, you're like, but I tried, I did my best.
Yeah, no, I guess that's in line with putting yourself out there. I recently had a conversation with Liz Mosley, and she's doing something called as a rejection challenge where she pitches herself to clients, even if they say no. And if they say no, and you hadn't pitched to them, they had already said no, right? So the worst that could happen is them saying no. And you still worked on yourself, you gained something from the experience, you did your research, and you don't know, 10 months later, someone else approached you in the same industry. You already have that research in your brain and you don't have to go out of your way to learn more about, let's say, a food brand, and you already know about their competitors. So even if you don't gain something in that moment and it doesn't seem like it's worth it, it's probably worth it for you in the future.
Hmm.
And I think I kind of say that from experience. I'm an engineer by training. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a computer engineer and I transitioned to design. And all my engineering school things still help me. My analytical
Yeah,
skills help me. My generic first year of engineering helped me. And then I transitioned into core software engineering. And those skills still help me. Like I was looking at ChatGPT yesterday and it was in the deep research mode and I was trying to see how it generates stuff and it was actually making it in Python. And I was interested to see how it worked. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I can actually make sense of it. Maybe make my own GPT
yeah.
someday.
Oh, I've made two already. They're so much fun. You got to
Yeah,
try it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know we talked about that rewarding moment. Would you say that's the highlight of you being an educator? What's the highlight? What makes you happy and makes you
Oh,
happy again when you go to bed?
when I get a text that says, Nick, I got the job, that's like the best feeling in the world.
Hmm.
I think I've screenshot every one of those, and
Yeah.
I just keep it in my photo library, and it's so awesome. Unfortunately, you get the other ones, like I lost my job or whatever, but then your job is to just pick them back up and be like, you got this. Big stuff's happening for you, bigger and better doors. You just try to be the cheerleader for them in a lot of ways, but nothing beats that. Nothing beats like next week when they get to graduate and all of our faculty line up and we are the first to greet them when they come off the stage and they get their diploma from the campus president. It's great. It's a good feeling, and you see that look of relief and then that look of what the hell's next. It's like so good, you know. Yeah, but I really, when they get the job, oh my gosh, one of my faculty members, he ended his speech one time when we did this great little on-site. He says, the only thing I care about is my kids getting jobs. And it's true. It's like, even if it's the short-lived one, whatever, it's the first one. It's that big one that proves that, one, school, everything you learned and you put your best foot forward and you got it. But most importantly, for I think our students in our school, a lot of them they're the first ones not only going to school, not only going to college from their family, but then they picked art. And so One thing I love is when we have our student show, I'll get a parent come up to me and just be like, "Are you Nick?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Be honest with me. My kid have a chance?" Like, they're so they don't understand the creative industry, and everything. And it's my job to kind of give them a little peace of mind, tell them the kids did great, they'll be fine. And I tell them a little bit about my story, like someone like you, anybody else. I will, again, knowing so many folks and having a great network, I will be like, "Can I tell you a little bit a friend of mine and, their journey, whatever," and that's just amazing. That puts them a little at rest. Then God forbid if I see them again, they're like, "Still hasn't happened yet. My kid didn't get a job." I'm like, "Be patient, it's gonna work." They didn't like rank up, $200,000 worth of student fees, we're a Cal State, and
Yeah.
it's not breaking the bank. At least I hope, but that's the best part. It really is.
It's unfortunate that still the older generations don't actually understand how art and creative industries work.
Yeah, and
But I think we're kind of getting there.
it's our job to change the perception, I think, too, and
Absolutely.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? I mean, you can go to, like, Adobe Max and see someone like Aaron Draplin, right?
Yeah.
Christo, a few people. Great,
Yeah.
great, amazing. James Martin, all these folks that, like, I think have become huge advocates for our industry,
Mm.
and you could just show them those examples. You can show them, be like, they took a unique path, started here, whatever it might have been, and the way they maneuvered and found their belonging, their time, their foundation. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, let's talk about that more and more. Pick up a book, pick up look at all the folks in look at how advertising agencies kind of have now all shifted to like creative agencies.
Yeah.
I thought business and marketing and all that was the creme de creme of like everything, but like, why is it all becoming creative agencies? So
Hmm.
we're winning, I think.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Mhm.
I think of it like strategy, where if you're pitching to a client and thinking of a logo concept, how would you pitch your creative career to your parent and be like, why is this a good decision? And
Yeah.
tell them why. Yeah. I like to think of it that way. So where does a design podcast come into the picture in all the years of being a design professor?
For mine, you
Yeah.
mean? I was a listener of it,
Mm.
and at the time, the company that I was running here in LA. We decided to sell, and I was like, "Does anyone out there do this independently?" All that kind of stuff. I was really curious to know because I'd always wanted to do my own thing, and I found the podcast, and they were two entrepreneurial creatives that ran their own business. And it was so remarkable to listen to. I would listen to it on my hour and a half drive to my agency job every day, LA traffic. And thank God, because like podcasts were, they were the only ones talking design. And I reached out to them one day and I just was like, "Hey, I no longer am doing agency. I'm starting my own business. I just started teaching. I'm like, I think I'd be a great voice to bring on, if you're ever looking for an additional co-host." And they brought me on, and yeah, a few weeks later they were like, "Come on board." So been doing that now for 11 years. And 2 years ago, the guy who led it broke off and wanted to get more into YouTube and a whole other direction in his business. So he's like, "If you want to take it over from here, so myself and Mikkel and Tom, who is producing his own show on our network as well, we've been really just trying different things. It's the most challenging chess game of like analytics and guests and are you writing the right title and all that other stuff. And it's like I'm really caught up in it now because I'm really trying to like do the weekly and give it like the best shot this year. But you'll find, and I'm sure you can agree with me, the best reason is not again for what is success with that. Success is that I have met probably 250 people and had amazing one-on-ones with them, and now it has led to like lifelong friendships with them. So,
Absolutely.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
that's
the
success.
the listeners would be surprised how many people actually say yes to having the conversation.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of asking people. which kind of makes me question, how do you decide what stories would be something that would resonate with your audience?
Yeah. Um, I try to keep the consideration in mind of who our audience is and what they're looking for. A lot of times it's that extra push to either start the side business or the side hustle, or you have the side hustle and it's doing well. And when do you make the decision to leave the 9 to 5 and go full force into your side gig and turn it into the real deal? That's always a consideration as well. I think conferences and being out there in the community allow me to meet some great people. So just got back from the CropCon in Austin last week and already lined up like 4 people that I met there that I just think are unique. And my only recommendation or my requirement is that they come with some game changing kind of advice or process or something that will really be a note taking kind of episode with our audience. Like I want them to like, whoa, what was that again? Like write that down, or here's a key resource, or here's a key book or course that changed my trajectory. So I really love that. I don't want to talk about an origin story or anything. I want to be like, let's get right down to what you do best, and are you willing to share that stuff with them?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So do you think that along with YouTube, are podcasts the new generation design education?
I don't know. It's like I like the YouTube side of it a lot
Hmm.
better. We're exploring both sides of that, both YouTube, um, Spotify, Apple, all of them. But
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. The viewing habits of people are changing so much. I think there was a maybe a podcast kind of burnout once everyone went back to real life after COVID. Because I think a lot of people were like discovering them because there was like, it's like, I can't watch another movie, whatever it might be. And it's like they got into, and podcasts were able to continue because everyone was kind of basically doing them from home or home studios.
Yeah.
So now, and then my YouTube consumption has grown, and I'm like, ooh, maybe that's a neat area to put the podcast as well and see what happens there and have a
Mm.
voice there. I'm a big fan of like having the video and audio together. Like audio only for me only works if I'm driving, and now without too much of a I don't have much of a commute at all. I'm not listening to a lot of those long form ones anymore, but what I am doing is I am making habit of watching a lot of these things because I want to see the person behind this.
Yeah.
So maybe the answer is video podcast, meaning like you know what I mean, like this, because it's the best of both.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I've been experimenting with YouTube lately too, and I think with the YouTube algorithm kind of changing this year, focusing on smaller creators and not like millions of subscribers, I think that's kind of been a game changer too, where experimenting and changing the titles every other week, and then
Right.
changing a thumbnail and doing like a test run, or as they say, trial reels on Instagram can be quite helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been pushing my podcasts on YouTube as well, so that's been interesting.
If you already have it, you might as well like post it in both
Yeah,
areas, right?
exactly. Yeah, it just takes one click and you don't have to do anything. You're basically pushing the same information.
Yeah.
So yeah, put it everywhere.
Yeah.
Repurpose your content.
What made you start a podcast?
I think it was the connection that I was missing. I was kind of on an imposter syndrome thing for like 6 months in between there. And then I asked myself, what is the one thing that I find missing in my creative process? And I think with that was like community. And that's what brought me back. With like sharing on social media was like such a hustle kind of moment for me. And I don't really think that I'm that person who would be able to share 5, 6 days a week, but with podcast, I get to have conversations and like honest conversations where it's not just about a set list of things that you have to talk about. It's just genuine learning more from your expertise and then making it useful for the listeners. I think that was my drive. And in that process, you also build that relationship with the person where it's just so exhilarating, and it kind of fulfills you in that moment, and even days after you think about a conversation like, 3 weeks ago, and you're like, oh, I actually learned about it on my podcast recording with someone. So yeah,
I'm
it's
learning too.
yeah. Yeah, it's a process. So yeah, just as a last question to you, what is your hope in for our next gen of creative storytellers?
Oh, wow. I hope things get ironed out to the point where technology doesn't move so fast that they can never feel like they have a foundation or some groundwork. I think we can look back at when computer desktop publishing, Macs, came into the industry and changed everything. Then the speed of technology was comfortable. It was, oh, new feature, whatever it was, great. This just seems too fast and too I was gonna say too furious. It's true, but it kind of is that. And again, it it's the next gen's gonna lack having any footing because it's always changing and they're gonna have to change. They deserve a time to be like, I just want to be a creative and I want to make a living, and it shouldn't take over all of your life. You got to have work-life balance. And what I'm fearful of is we're going to get so caught up in being up to date that you know that the definition of being a creative is really going to change. And I hate to see that happen. I'd love to see the advancement. I love to see the help of AI, but I don't want it to kind of completely redefine what it is. And everybody's just so stressed out, like we already are. Like we need to go backwards, not so forward with
Yeah.
stuff, because it's just too much. One student asked me the other day, who exactly is asking for everything to be so much faster? And I was like,
I wish I knew.
I have
Yeah.
no idea. It's such a great great kind of perspective there of going like, who's asking for all this faster? Who?
Yeah.
Is it just technology companies going like, gotta be this? I don't know.
Yeah, no. Yeah, on that note, I will say, if you're listening to this podcast, go out and touch grass. It might help you. But thank you so much, Nick, for being here and being a guest on here. I think I have to invite you again 20 years later when we have more advancements.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll have another fun
Yeah.
out in Toronto or whatever
Yeah.
it might be.
Yeah. No, I'll see you at Max.
Oh,
Hopefully
that's
this
right.
year.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you another time.
That was such a refreshing and honest conversation with Nick. I enjoyed every bit of it. What stood out to me the most was the fact that he puts people first, whether it's clients, designers, or his students. If you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing to Able Heads wherever you get your podcasts. But until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep creating.